Baseball is back, and I tell you what, everybody's panicking, but the Cubs look like they might be all right. Welcome to Club 400, the podcast. We got John over here, the sound man, much more than that, and William. William, what's going on?
Just loving the way that Big Blue is playing these days. I
was listening to Plesac the other day, Dan Plesac, and he said the Big Blue train is coming, so watch out, chug, chug, chug. But let's go back to one of the most, I think, funnest parts of the winter is when the Cubs released the promotional schedule. I mean, giveaways. Everybody loves giveaways. Let's face it, everybody loves free stuff. And everyone really, if you're a Cubs fan, you love free Cubs stuff. So, I mean, I know a lot of people that circle certain dates on the calendar because of a giveaway. For instance, earlier this year, Crawley goes to Wrigley Field at 8:30 just to get in line for the, I think it was the Wrigley Field, what was it?
Something.
Yeah, it was a Wrigley Field sculptor.
Yeah, some model of Wrigley
like
Field, yeah.
And I know...
in the snow.
Yeah, he's out there at 8:30, the worst weather day ever. And he's like the only person out there.
He had his snow pants on. He was ready.
He's happy as can be.
And
happy.
Crawley will be on the second half of this episode, so make sure you listen to the whole thing. But yeah, one thing that people really look forward to is the bobblehead days.
Heck yeah, man.
I mean, that's what it's all about.
Well, and I can't wait to talk to our guest today because I want to find out what the fascination is with the bobblehead. I mean, people go nuts over those.
We're posting a video, and speaking of that, William, that Crawley gave to me, and it shows the ruckus atmosphere at Wrigley Field over a bobblehead last year. I believe it was the Javi Baez blowing the bubble bobblehead. Mm-hmm. And that's the thing. I have to say this. The Cubs only give away usually 10,000 bobbleheads. It's plain wrong. You go to Milwaukee, every fan gets a bobblehead.
Yeah, although again, we'll ask our guest that's coming on, but I wonder if that helps create the frenzy.
It might, but I mean but if you're the Cubs organization, that's the last thing you want is a big scene and fights, and people are getting there 5 hours before the game, maybe 6. Just standing there waiting to make sure they get a bobblehead. And some people, obviously, get these bobbleheads, and next thing you know, they throw it on eBay, and they're making like $80, $90. Like that Baez bobblehead from last year, you can't get that thing, I think, under $80 right now on eBay. So,
well, it's two very specific people who like the bobblehead, from my observation. Like, it's the ones who are collectors and they'll sell them on eBay, and then it's kids. The kids love the bobblehead. I went down to Busch once. It was a Molina bobblehead night. I don't care about the Cardinals. I don't care about Molina. So therefore, I don't care about the bobblehead. I got one, and this kid comes after the game out of the park, and he's crying because he didn't get one. I'm like, here, kid, have it. I didn't care.
Right.
Like half the people there were going to sell it anyway, and this kid passed like 5 people who had it.
But you don't think,
and then he found out it was worth $1,000.
Yeah.
He was kicking himself the whole way home.
I cried.
But you don't think like most people, because most people have that bobblehead and they're thinking this is $75 bill. Not that they make a $75 bill, but it's $75 here. I can get that. But that was really nice. And yeah, I mean,
I know what matters. It mattered to that kid. It would matter to me. But if it was obviously, I'll be honest with you. If it was the bobble, like the Javi bobblehead, I probably wouldn't have given it away.
Right. I kind of think I would have made the analogy, the bobblehead, to the Beanie Baby back in the day, because frankly, they're ceramic pieces of whatever,
and not even ceramic anymore. Most of them are so
like
plastic,
epoxy.
Yeah. But I would have made that analogy because I never understood that whole phenomenon either. Until I met this next guest.
He's definitely taking it to the next level. He has. And I'll tell you what, and before we introduce him, William, the Cubs, I don't know if you guys know this. So the Cubs, every year, if you're a season ticket holder, you get a gift in the mail. And usually it's something, just a trinket, let's put it that way. It's nothing unbelievably great. But because of this year, and they went ticketless, so there's really no reason to send anything, but they sent a gift box, and one of the items in the gift box was a limited edition Javi Baez bobblehead. I know the season ticket holders are definitely happy. Bobbleheads, they capture our youth. They capture our imagination. I mean, I've got boxes and boxes of them. But the gentleman we're going to introduce now took it to the next level.
Yes, he
took
did.
it to the highest of all levels. And he's opened up the National Bobblehead Hall of Fame. Let's introduce our guy, William.
Oh, that's from Phil
Skylar. Phil Skylar.
No, we got to do that over.
Just say our guest. Yeah.
Our guest, Phil Skylar.
Phil Skylar.
We're Cubs fans helping Cubs fans at Stewart's Cubs cave parties. Everybody's in for giving back to those in need. We're going to Club 400. Club 400. We're going to Club 400. Club 400. We're going to Club 400 Radio. All right.
Welcome to Club 400, the podcast. Phil Skylar, we're happy to have you on. What's going on out there in Milwaukee, Wisconsin?
I'm excited to be on. It's nice because the weather's warming up. People are coming out of hibernation, and we're seeing a lot of visitors to the museum. So we're really excited. Great weather coming up, and summertime is in the air. Baseball season's here, so it's a wonderful time.
I agree, and I'll tell you what, me and William, we got the opportunity to go to the Bobblehead Hall of Fame down in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and we picked up the two Zobrist 3-foot bobbleheads, and we also got a tour of your remarkable museum. But before we get into that, let's talk about you and your story. I know you are a Cubs fan, and that's one of the reasons why we wanted to have you on our show. So tell us about a little bit about you and how you became a Cubs fan.
Yeah, I'm a lifelong Cub fan. My dad, growing up in Rockford, Illinois, became a Cub fan at a young age. His dad was a baseball fan, but not as much as he became. And he would listen to the games at school. He'd tell me the stories about sneaking out of class to listen to some of the games in the hallway or in the bathroom, especially if it was a bigger game. Ernie Banks was his favorite player growing up, and lifelong Cubs fan. So when I was born in '83, he took me to a game when I was in the womb, him and my mom. My mom actually, when she met him at the University of Iowa, he was wearing a Cubs hat, and she asked him what the C on the hat stood for. So she was actually a sports fan at the time, but, growing up in Western Iowa, she, I guess, had never encountered a Cubs hat or never inquired about what the C on the Cubs hat meant. So she, I don't know if that story seemed fake because her dad was a huge Cardinals fan. But anyway, that's how the story goes. And so they took me to, Cubs games growing up. It became a tradition, I think when I was about 6, going to opening day every year. So I'd, get that call to school that Phil was sick and not coming in. And we'd make our way from Rockford to Wrigley Field, and just such great memories of Wrigley Field and Cubs games with the families and friends, and that's really how it started.
And who was your all-time favorite player?
Mine was Ryan Sandberg. He was just I don't know, something about him and his playing style and his personality connected. It's probably also the chances to meet him at the Cubs convention. Just seemed like a real nice, down-to-earth guy. Always was friendly, and got a chance to meet him and get his autograph and talk to him multiple times, and just really enjoyed watching him play. And he became my favorite player pretty quickly.
I can understand you're going to the Cubs game when you were a kid, going from Rockford. That's a haul. That's a full day affair. Of getting in your car, driving to Wrigley, hour and a half, maybe 2 hours to get to Wrigley, 2 hours back, straight shot down I-90, obviously. So yeah, I mean that's pretty cool. I grew up in McHenry, Illinois, and now I live in Lake in the Hills, and getting down there, it's a task. So, but yes, we were talking earlier on the podcast about over the winter, all the Major League Baseball teams release their promotional schedules, and many fans look forward to that because they want to find out, when the giveaways are. But the most important giveaways for most fans are the bobbleheads. And before we get into the Bobblehead Hall of Fame, tell us your younger memories of going to Wrigley and getting a bobblehead.
Yeah, so actually, predating the bobblehead, some of the earliest memories were going to Wrigley and getting a Beanie Baby. I don't know if you remember, back in that would have been probably late 90s, early 2000s. They did the cow Beanie Baby, but it was a special tag for Harry Carey.
Daisy the cow. It was Daisy the cow, right?
Daisy the cow, yeah. Daisy the cow. The Thai Beanie Baby, and I think those were selling on eBay for upwards of $200. And I think some of my earlier entrepreneurial aspirations came from the Beanie Baby craze. I would stand in line, get some Beanie Babies, sell them on eBay, and trade, buy, sell, trade. And I was in probably 12, 13 at the time. But yeah, I remember going to Wrigley Field. We got there really early, but the lines were just unbelievable around the block. And I think we had an extra ticket, so we tried to get an extra bobblehead and Beanie Baby. But then bobbleheads, the Cubs, when the Giants gave away the first bobblehead at a game in 1999, most of the teams hopped on the next season because they saw how popular the bobbleheads were for fans, just at the Giants game, and said, hey, we got to jump on this bandwagon. And, it hasn't died down since. But, we didn't go to as many Cubs games for bobbleheads back then. It wasn't until probably, later 2000s that we started collecting bobbleheads, and then we would circle the Cubs games where it was a bobblehead game. And there were some fun experiences with that, going to the games and trying to get as many bobbleheads as possible.
That's interesting. I never really realized that they didn't start giving away bobbleheads at baseball games till 1999. I'm sure they did, maybe here or there, but traditionally it kicked off in 99. Then that's what you're saying, right?
As giveaways, right?
Yeah,
yeah.
Because they sold.
Well,
them.
so for the bobbleheads, yeah, they were sold at stadiums, but yeah, bobbleheads really had a resurgence in 1999, in the early 2000s, and but yeah, Cubs have always been on the forefront of promotion. So, you look back at some of the promotional items the Cubs gave away, and just a number of promotional items, and I think it started with John McDonough. When he was with the Cubs, really using promotions to drive attendance and get fans excited, get them into the gates early, get them for batting practice, and they'll buy concessions and souvenirs. And the Cubs were really a leader in that and continue to be.
Yeah, you're right. John McDonough was a big part of it. And I remember
my most famous alumni, by the way, from my college, John McDonough.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now with the Blackhawks, of course. But
Yep.
I remember they had the Cabbage Patch Kid. Remember that giveaway?
Yes.
Yep.
So let me ask you about that, because the Beanie Baby, the Cabbage Patch Kid, we could go on and on. Like with Beanie Babies, that was, for those who don't remember that, I mean, that was hot. That was a big deal. As a matter of fact, my oldest son, when he was 1 year old or 1.5, he was in a stroller and stole one in a store. Like, he just reached out and grabbed it on the shelf, and I sold it for $1,000 cash. I'm not kidding. That's another show.
That is a good. You told me that story before.
But
$1,000
cash. So, but the question is, when that first started, you could tell, and I used to collect baseball cards, and I was a moderate collector, not really hardcore, but you could tell the Beanie Baby was there, it was hot, and it was going away at some point. And the box that everybody had with all the Beanie Babies and the tags and the plastic things, you knew that those were going to be worth nothing at a certain period of time. You could just tell, because it was kind of stupid. Bobblehead dolls have, I didn't realize how long they've been around until I was at your place, but they've been around since those first ones, the oldest ones you had, the football ones, were those 60s or 70s?
Yeah, 1960, 61. So, yeah, exactly. Beanie Babies.
They've stood the test of time. Why do you think that is?
Yeah, it's definitely a great comparison that we give it a lot when people ask if bobbleheads are going to stick around. Beanie Babies were mass-produced in, quantities sometimes in the, millions potentially. And there was that, Ty did a tremendous job of sort of hyping that supply and demand, and there's also there's books on the whole Beanie Baby craze. I haven't read them, but I've read different parts and some articles, just more out of curiosity and to learn. But yeah, there was even a UPS, I think, a strike at the time that caused a lot of the shortage in demand. They weren't able to get them to the stores quickly, so it made it seem like, they were just hard to get. So there was that craze where people felt like there was only going to be a handful of these, but they kept coming and coming and coming, and there was definitely the ability to make as many as people would buy, and so there was no limit. I mean, there's some obviously in the earlier parts that there might have only been hundreds or thousands made, but as it got crazy to where everybody knew it wasn't going to sustain itself, there was hundreds of thousands or millions of a given character being made, and people were still lining up to buy them and reselling them for 10 times or 20 times what they paid. But now you go to Goodwill and you can find them for a quarter. So there's that. And then on the bobblehead side, most of them are limited and extremely smaller quantities. So like when the Cubs give away a bobblehead, let's say last year's Javi Baez bobblehead, only 10,000 were made, and that's all that will ever be made. And there's obviously a lot more than 10,000 Cubs fans, 10,000 Cubs fans that like bobbleheads, 10,000 Javi Baez fans. So that's where you have that, real supply and demand, where there's only 10,000 ever made. There's 20,000 people or 50,000 people that want one, and that's why the price on eBay goes up to way over $100, sometimes 200 or well over that. So as long as that limited factor is there, there'll definitely be that collectability, and I don't think they'll be going anywhere. I think the same issue happened with baseball cards too in the 90s, where there was just so many being produced that they really lost their value. But now I think the industry learned, and now they're back to where they're producing more normal quantities, where there's that supply and demand balance.
So Phil, so you're a proponent of what the Cubs do instead of what the Brewers do. I think Brewers give away a bobblehead to everybody that walks into the door, and that could be 40-some thousand bobbleheads. And the Cubs, yes, limited to usually 10,000. But you think that's good for the market, obviously.
Yeah, I think it is. But even what the Brewers do, all fans, and they've actually scaled that back a little bit to like first 30,000 or first 40,000. The Dodgers did that as well, where they were giving all fans, and then they did first 40 or 50,000 in their cases, in some cases. It does definitely help in terms of long-term value. So I guess the teams have to balance whether they want to give all fans a bobblehead, or if, so in some cases, 10,000 is all that, for if they have a sponsor that's covering it, or if they're covering part of the cost. The cost of 40,000 bobbleheads is a lot more than 10,000. But for the market value longer term, obviously 10,000, a run of 10,000 is going to have a lot more value. But yeah, it's all for fun and to make the fans happy.
It seems like the Cubs do that for all their giveaway merchandise. They do that with even the cheapest of rally rags. Those like hand towels they gave out with the W on it. They only did 10,000 of those too. So
yeah, and I think part of that is to get people to come to the game early.
it works.
I think it's a mix of that. Yeah, it works. Yeah, for sure. And it gets exactly. Yep.
Beer.
So yeah, it's definitely. I think some of the Cubs have always sort of followed that, making them a little more limited. Getting people excited about them. If it's an all-fan giveaway, it's not as I guess exclusive. It's something you have to get there early for, and
very true.
Make sure you get.
So Phil, let's rewind a little bit and go back and to obviously you're a collector and you collect bobbleheads, but let's go back to before you came up with this awesome idea of having a national Bobblehead Hall of Fame. Obviously you turned your passion into a business, and tell us about the evolution of that from you just being a fan and a collector, and now the owner of the National Bobblehead Hall of Fame out in Milwaukee.
Yeah, so started at a young age as a collector. I collected baseball cards, which my dad got me into, and so that transitioned. We already mentioned Beanie Babies, which is something entrepreneurial, and I was collecting for that time, and selling, and that process probably played a little bit of a role. And then the other co-founder, Brad, who you met, was working for the Rockford Riverhawks, which is the minor or independent league team that was in Rockford, now has a new name, but he was doing the scoreboard and also interned, and they gave away a bobblehead of their mascot, which was the first bobblehead giveaway they did, and that was in 2003. So he got that bobblehead. We both went to school in Milwaukee, and as sports fans, we would circle the bobblehead dates, for the local teams. So the hockey, soccer, baseball, the Bucks, pretty much any team that had a bobblehead giveaway, we'd try to get some, and we'd get some extras and trade them away or sell them and then buy some. Wouldn't go to California for a bobblehead giveaway, so we'd trade or sell to get one of those. And the collection sort of grew pretty slowly. I guess fast forward to about 2013, we had made friends with the manager for the Milwaukee sports teams when we were going to school there, and he participates in Special Olympics, so we wanted to honor him with the bobblehead. So we set out to make a bobblehead and have one produced for him. And during that process, we realized there was a need in the market for somebody to produce bobbleheads and market and sell them. There's about a half dozen or so producers of bobbleheads, probably closer to a dozen, but all those companies also do other promotional items. None of them are focusing on bobbleheads. So we saw that as an opportunity, and had a really good experience selling his bobblehead, and part of the proceeds went to Special Olympics. So it was a really good experience all around. And then, at the same time, our collection was growing out of control. So we had about 3,000 bobbleheads, and they were, starting to take over all over the place. So we sort of put the ideas together to produce bobbleheads and have a one-of-a-kind museum dedicated to bobbleheads.
What did your wife think of this whole idea?
Well, there is none, so that helped. But family actually were really supportive of the idea, because we spend a lot of time sort of hashing it out and testing it. We sort of came up with it in around April of 2014, and it wasn't until about November when we officially announced the concept and really ran with it full steam ahead. But yeah, it was a lot of work went into it, into the thoughts, just the planning and the ideas, and coming up with some unique bobblehead concepts to produce. So we'd have a pipeline, right as we were getting started. That's really how it got going.
Stu gets that question all the time. What does your wife think of your basement?
That's why I finally get to ask it to you.
Maybe you guys should get your wives to start like a Facebook page for suffering wives of crazy
baseball addicts. So me and William were asking, were those your wives that were in there? Are they part of or was that just some people you had working there when we went there? Are they part of it too, the wives?
No, so there are no wives, but I'm not sure who was there when you were there. I think it was our front desk workers. So yeah, I wasn't sure if it was visitors or front desk, but no, they're front desk. We hired, we have 3 front desk workers who, welcome visitors on a daily basis. We still interact with visitors frequently as much as we can, but they welcome them, check them in, give them an overview, also handle a lot of the customer service from the website. And so yeah, they're not our wives, but they're great to have helpers and other people on board so we can continue to grow and evolve.
So when you actually decided, like, we're actually going to do a Bobblehead Hall of Fame in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, I'm like, how excited were you? Like, I can't believe we're really doing this. Like, it had to be exciting, venture at the time. I mean, and it still is.
Yeah, it was
obviously.
an exciting. Yeah, it was exciting. It was exhilarating. It was a bit nervous, but I think we were more, just excited. We both quit our full-time jobs, so it was definitely a big leap. We had put, all of our energy and everything we had behind this. And so, no, it was really exciting. It was around mid-November, and we announced the concept, got a lot of really good press and really good feedback from people. So that was really, exciting. And validating for the idea. And then we came out with some bobbleheads, with the first one being Ronnie Woo Woo, which was
Williams purchased when he was at the
a lot of
Bobblehead Fall.
exciting.
William bought a Ronnie Woo when we visited you.
I did.
Yeah, he saw that on the
It's
shelf. And
right.
he had to have
Yeah.
that.
It's proudly displayed at my new office at work.
So that was your first bobblehead, or at the store?
Yeah, so the first one was Michael from Milwaukee, but the first one that we created after we announced the idea, shortly after that November, coming up with the museum, we had been talking to Ronnie for probably about 6 months leading up to that, and Ronnie, a friend of Ronnie's who helps him with those type of requests, and so it actually probably goes back a couple years before that when my dad's like, hey, you guys should do a bobblehead of Ronnie. When we're at the Cubs convention, he brings it up, and we're like, yeah, that's actually a really good idea. All Cubs fans know Ronnie, and non-Cubs fans know him too. And, it's just love him or hate him. He's a fun character that, is just probably as well known as most people in Chicago, any famous person in Chicago. So we approached him and got the bobblehead done and ready to release right around that time. And that one was one of our more viral bobbleheads. And we joke sometimes that, if we would have known what we knew today, we would have done some things differently. Like we would have had samples at all the press outlets and everything, but it still just took off sort of like wildfire, and was a great bobblehead for the first experience. And then sort of funny, the second bobblehead we did, because we were like, oh, Ronnie is for the Cubs, Sox Man is for the Sox. They'll probably both do good. And Sox Man was sort of a flop, but you have
No
winners
surprise.
and losers, and yeah, no surprise. Exactly. Yeah.
I wish I had the wah wah
so-
wah sound effect.
Yep. So that was sort of one of those things where we're like all excited about the first one, and then the second one sort of flops. But you live and learn, and we had some great learning experiences from both those two initial bobbleheads. And Ronnie, we've gotten to know him really good, and seen him quite a bit, and it's just and really good to know him, and actually a great guy from what we've gathered and have been able to meet him and talk to him. And so, we're glad to be able to honor him with the bobblehead, especially because the Cubs have sort of not honored him, but it's sort of a fun bobblehead in our history.
Oh, it's awesome. And I want to tell everybody, if you get a chance, like you're going to go to Milwaukee to watch the Cubs, you have to stop in at this place, because I had no idea what we're going to walk into.
You asked me to go with you, and we're driving up there, and some of the conversation was we had literally no idea what we were walking into.
Nothing. You know what? I'm just going to tell you guys this. This presentation is everything. And this place is beautiful. And I was shocked when I walked up those stairs and I walked into this place. And you guys did one heck of a job, let me tell you. And the place just feels warm, and everywhere you look. And what I really liked, William, is when you walked in, they had a big cabinet of Cubs bobbleheads.
That's
right
the
in
first
front.
thing you see, which is fantastic.
So
But-
tell
but
us a little. Tell us a little bit about the museum. I think you have over 6,000 bobbleheads in there displayed. Is that correct?
Yeah. So well, first off, thanks. I'm glad. It's always great to hear, feedback and hear people's stories about their experiences. And we've been getting a ton of visitors from the Chicago and Chicagoland areas, and it's just it's been tremendous to hear people's feedback, because you spend all this time and effort to, make everything as perfect as possible, and then to see it come to fruition is exciting. But yeah, 6,500 bobbleheads, and as you mentioned, right when you walk in, we have sort of a regional area leading up to the local all Wisconsin area. But yeah, 3 big cases of Cubs bobbleheads, and we get badgered a little bit about that sometimes, but we say, yeah, this is regional leading into local, and look how many Wisconsin bobbleheads there are. But all the Cubs World Series bobbleheads. Actually, earlier this week we just got the Benny the Bull, Staley the Bear, and Southpaw 3-foot bobbleheads. So we put those on top of those cases, and they look great. So even more Chicago bobbleheads, but for Wisconsin fans, we still have all the Wisconsin 3-foot bobbleheads. So,
I'm one of the unusual people
pretty
that
valid.
actually. Sorry, I'm one of the unusual people that actually likes Southpaw. I think that's actually a really cool mascot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
And then you have not just sports bobbleheads, but you have all kinds of bobbleheads in there.
Politicians, musicians.
How did you get? I mean, I know like you were a collector, but where did you get these the rare type bobbleheads? I know you had a bobblehead, one that was worth a bunch of money. I think it was an old football one. But how did you guys get all the? Did you guys get donations or? How did you accumulate this unbelievable? I mean, because I know you have like 3,000, and like they've already outgrown the Bobblehead Hall of Fame. I mean, tell you, because it's full. There's not a lot of room left in there.
Well, and you have a lot more.
Yeah, and you still have like 3,000. Like, and then when I was in there, you had a girl. She was like actually doing like inventory of each bobblehead and where it was and each case and everything. It was amazing, but like. I mean, I guarantee you guys, it's worth a stop. Check it out.
It should be mandatory when you're going to Wrigley North. You should just stop there first, right?
Yeah, and then they got a gift shop in there where you can buy bobbleheads, and they have
and the map.
Oh, the map. You got to mark your spot
where you're from, where you're coming from, and there's people from all over. It went outside the borders of the United States that have been there.
There's people all over. That was a great idea, Phil.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Yeah, I can't say we invented that idea, but during our travels, and we've been to 27 of the 30 Major League Baseball stadiums over the past, dozen or so years of a journey of ours, and that was something we saw at a few different places, mainly a couple of restaurants that were sort of famous and featured on TV shows. So we took that idea and incorporated it. We have a U.S. map and an international map. And as you mentioned, the maps have been getting filled up. I think we were looking at it the other day, and there's only, 3 or 4 states where we're missing a visitor. And it's been pretty exciting. We just opened to the public on February 1st. So only about 2.5 months into it. And we're only about 10 minutes from Wrigley North. So short little drive, and you're right at the ballpark, and it's great to see all the excitement. And Cubs fans, those are some of our favorite games is when the Cubs come to Wrigley North, because we only have to drive 10 or 15 minutes to get to the game. So we try to go to as many as possible, and we're seeing, like this week, we've just seen a ton of Dodgers fans with the Dodgers in town to play the Brewers. So I'm sure it'll be a great stop for a lot of baseball fans when they're in the area.
Yeah, going back to my long-winded question, how do you accumulate like some of the, football ones and celebrity ones and wrestling ones? You got them all in there,
Yeah, and it is not just sports. We get a lot of people who are just blown away by the number of non-sports fans. In some cases, they came and didn't bring whoever was a non-sport fan, and they're like, "Oh, I got to bring her back." We try to let people know how many, varieties there are, but, most people just associate bobbleheads more with sports. But, acquired them. We had that collection of about 3,000, which is still sort of in my mind. How do we get that many? I don't even, I'd have to go back and take a look, but it seemed like they just started multiplying. But then when we announced the idea in November of 2014, we just started to get so many of them sent in. People who wanted their bobbleheads to be part of the collection. In one case, there's a gentleman from Cleveland who reached out to us. He knew about us from a press story. And that's part of the reason we kept getting all these bobbleheads, was there were some really good stories about us and about our efforts in trying to develop the museum. And he had a terminal cancer, but he wanted his collection to go to a good place. And he had about 1,500 unique bobbleheads. He became known as Bobblehead Bob to all his friends and family, just given his love and excitement for bobbleheads. So he decided to contribute all his bobbleheads to the museum. So that's just one of the ways that collection continued to expand and grow.
Yeah, if you have any bobbleheads you want to donate, this guy is the one to send it to.
Phil, what would somebody see if they got on that elevator and then they got off at the second floor? What's the first thing that they would see?
Bobbleheads. Lots of bobbleheads.
Specifically of who?
But what's that?
Specifically of who?
Yeah. Oh, of who? Yes. So, if you take the elevator up, you know, you see a cross section of recent arrivals and bobbleheads that were donated. There's also the welcome panel that talks more about how the museum was founded, and some bobblehead related art. And then as you make your way to the front desk, there's a wall that has from A to Z every baseball, basketball, football, and hockey team, one bobblehead representing each team. So that's a pretty cool thing to see. We selected one, and we've done some rotating, you know, so those will change as well. So, you know, Phillies might have had, you know, Utley, and now, you know, when Bryce Harper's bobblehead comes in, we'll swap it out. And then we have bobbleheads that are available in the store, in the windows, and so people can see those out of their boxes. The store is right there. And then, as we mentioned, the regional area, all the bobbleheads are organized sort of by category. So baseball, basketball, football, hockey, and then all your non-sports bobbleheads like political and cartoons, movies, actors, Star Wars. Just, you know, we just added 3 shelves of Major League Baseball Game of Thrones bobbleheads that weren't there when you guys were there. So always looking to add and move things around, swap things out, switch things up.
And that's the thing. You could go multiple times and see new stuff every time you go. So that's really...
And, you know, they're not just bobbleheads everybody, they're trying to educate you. I know you got a video that in production that people could watch. And then let's talk about the Bobblehead song, which, by the way, you need to send me. We need to put it on the end of this podcast.
Yeah.
Was that your... Did you write that song? Or how was that song? I know you can hear it at the museum.
Yeah, so the welcome video now is up, and people are watching that every day. So that just gives about a little bit over 2-minute overview of the museum and how it came to be. And that's in the area where all the Wisconsin bobbleheads are. But yeah, a lot of the educational that you just touched on, there's a lot of bios and information and history about certain people, especially some of the celebrities or, you know, major people that were featured in bobblehead form, from Martin Luther King Jr. to Rick Monday carrying the flag off the field. So a lot of, you know, great history that people leave with as well. But the Bobblehead song was written actually by a Milwaukee musician who's pretty well known in the state of Wisconsin and the region, named Pat McCurdy. Does a lot of folk, you know, catchy folk songs, you could call it. And so, yeah, Bobblehead song has become pretty popular for visitors. We have a button where you can push and listen to it and sing along. We also have it as our welcome music when people call in. So we'll definitely send you the link to the song so you can play that for listeners.
Sean, I can hear that in my head right now. Like, what do you call that when your song won't leave your head?
Yeah, you got it.
What do you call that?
I don't know.
Yeah. But so yeah, as far as obviously you have this awesome museum. What else does, like, obviously you sell bobbleheads from all different teams. You're doing a bunch of 3-footers now, but what other things do you guys offer as a company?
Yeah, so I mean, we're all bobbleheads. But any type of bobbleheads, not just sports bobbleheads, really anything and everything bobblehead related. But we also have, you know, merchandise with our logo on it in the store, so hats, T-shirts.
And if someone wants a custom bobblehead, right? They could call you, right? And you could get it done.
Exactly. So yeah, we also do fully custom bobbleheads. We also take suggestions. So if, you know, there's a new bobblehead that, you know, you're looking to do that you're interested in or think that would do well, we're definitely all ears and looking to always create some new and unique bobbleheads.
And I think it's really interesting the way, you know, you guys raise money for charity.
Yeah, a good friend of the show, Wes Jameson, worked with you guys to do a bobblehead that made some money.
A lot of the bobbleheads we've done, you know, we just think it's a natural fit where, you know, for selling a bobblehead for $25 or whatever, why not give a little bit of that to a good cause, especially if there's a good tie-in. So like with Wes, you know, a great guy who's been really supportive of us since day one. You know, we had heard about Tyler Trent from Purdue and, you know, seen him on the news as his story was, you know, getting told. But Wes reached out to us and was like, hey, I've started to talk to Tyler. I was inspired by his story. I think we need to make a bobblehead of him. So he helped us get that in the works. We made a bobblehead, sold about all of them. They're sold out, but they were individually numbered to 2,000 18 and, helped raise almost 15 grand for charities, cancer research. And if we can do good with bobbleheads, we definitely want to keep doing that.
Now, John and William, I don't know if you guys know this, but we can't say what it is, but I working with Phil on a special bobblehead for Club 400 coming out soon down the line, and I'm really excited about it. And there was no doubt that you were the guy to go to get this thing done. But if we were going to make a bobblehead of William, is there any, most of the bobbleheads' bodies are real skinny. Can you do wider sized bodies?
We could do anything. So they're completely customizable. Anything and everything.
William just flipped me off. He just flipped me off, by the way.
So he has the 3-foot ones. Do you have 3 foot wide ones?
We were going to do one with Stu and I together, but it wouldn't fit on any mold.
Well, there's duals, triples, quadruples. So like I said, nothing's outside the realm of possibilities.
So you get the baseball schedules. All now that you're becoming, you're getting bigger and bigger, and you will as time goes by. There's no doubt about it. And it's going to be a must stop for Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Do these teams just send you their bobbleheads every year? Are you getting packages all the time? And how's that working out? And where do you store all these bobbleheads, the ones you can't display? I mean, you got a warehouse for that? You must.
Yeah, pretty much on a daily basis where we're getting packages with new bobbleheads. So it's always exciting to open those up. We do reach out to some teams, and especially if we see some that are unique or that fans are asking for it, and they'll usually graciously send them because they want them on display. We have 2 storage garages right pretty close to the museum where a lot of the excess ones are kept. And then also, a fulfillment center that handles our shipping and receiving. So some of the extra ones are there as well. But we tell people, if you really want to see 20 Barry Bonds bobbleheads, we've selected our 3 favorites or 3 of the best. And, you don't need to see them all. So.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us today. It's already a destination if you go to Milwaukee, whether you're going for a game or not. It's perfect if you tack it on with a game, though, go there, go to lunch, and then go to a game.
And what's that place downstairs? What's the name of that burger place?
Yeah, it's called Stacked, and you do get 10% off with your receipt. So it's, a double whammy. You can take care of your appetite and your need for bobbleheads in one stop.
Yeah, and this is a museum where you can go to for 15, 20 minutes, or you could spend hours there. I mean, if you really go through and look at everything, and you guys are gracious enough to let people take pictures and stuff like that. And it's so cool.
I mean, there's bobbleheads, Facebook pages all over the place, addicts, and there's people who have bobblehead, there's basically conventions with bobbleheads. And give us your contact information so people can find you on the web, and get your address and all that stuff. Can you give us that real quick?
Of course. Yeah, all the information that you'll probably ever want to find about bobbleheads, you can find at bobbleheadhall.com. That's Bobblehead Hall, HALL.com. You can also find a link to our store. So if you're looking to purchase Cubs bobbleheads, we probably have, I'd say, the biggest selection out there, outside of eBay. And then we're located at 170 South 1st Street in Milwaukee. We're right on the 2nd floor. We have an elevator as well. So, and parking available in the lot right next to our entrance, and then a lot of free non-metered street parking all surrounding us. We're right on the edge of the neighborhood called Walker's Point in the 3rd Ward, which is a really popular area in Milwaukee. Lots of restaurants, bars, shops. Stu mentioned great burger restaurant below us, and one of Milwaukee's most popular coffee shops also below us. So, right there. Our phone number, 800-414-1482. If you have any questions or want to talk bobbleheads, you can always give us a call. And that's, I think, the main information there.
Man, I'm so happy for you, Phil, that you actually turned a passion into a business, that you get to wake up to something that you love every single day. You get to walk into your office, let's say, of 6,000 bobbleheads, and that's an awesome thing. That's the kind of thing we love talking about on the Club 400 podcast. So happy for you, man, and the sky is the limit. You're already going to have to move out of that place into a bigger place. But, man, I'm going to stop by again. I'm going to bring my family to come see you one day. And I'm wearing my shirt today, my shirt that I bought out there. So appreciate your time. We will share all of Phil's information on the Club 400 podcast website. And, yeah, hopefully we'll see you at Wrigley soon, Phil, huh?
Yeah, I really appreciate it. Thanks for having me on. Thanks so much for the kind words and for helping support it. And yeah, definitely see you at Wrigley soon, or Wrigley North. And go Cubs, go!
Phil Skylar, National Bobblehead Hall of Fame, and let's end this podcast with the Bobblehead song. Club 400 podcast. We got our boy Crawly back.
Our guy.
Man.
We got our guy.
I'll tell you what, Crawly. The Cubs convention episode was a big hit, man.
That was our number one hit for a long time.
Oh, and I'll tell you what.
And it's real close. It's probably 2 or 3.
We broke numbers with him, and I tell you what. I know he was a big bobblehead guy. I wanted to get him on this episode.
Actually, the show hasn't slowed down since we had Crawly on, so it's always good to have you
Crawly,
back.
I think you jump-started Club 400, the podcast.
Well, you guys do such a good job. I mean, it's just you guys offer something different than most other podcasts do. So I just like to be a little part of whatever's going on. It's a lot of fun. But your guys' show, I've been listening to what you've been doing, and you guys keep getting better and better.
And I'll tell you what, Crawly is the one who referenced Bob to come on the show, who was the originator of the W flag, was the one who took it on the road. And Bob's a great guy, and that was a great show because a lot of people. I mean, the W flag was one thing, but he had the first W flag they took on the road and
that he made.
Yeah, exactly. And that was because of Crawly. And that's what I want to tell the listeners right now. If you know a Cubs fan with a certain story that has, Cub fans want to hear it, and we want to hear it. And that's what Club 400, the podcast, is all about.
We came up with a phone number and email address. It's easy to get
that no one's calling and no one's emailing, but whatever. It is what it is. So, Crawly, I know that earlier this month you went to the GOT night at Wrigley Field, and tell us about that. Tell us about you had a bobblehead meeting at our bar Output, and I know that's probably what is that bobblehead going right now? The Game of Thrones bobblehead on the market. What is that going for?
I've seen it everywhere from about $80 to $160 for the Game of Thrones bobblehead. We did meet at Output, and that was just, for people that collect bobbleheads, it's a really crazy addiction, and some people can't understand it. And so we have a Facebook group. There's a couple Cubs bobblehead Facebook groups, and we just decided, hey, let's just meet up because we're always swapping and talking and kind of giving each other pointers and tips of where to find the best bobbleheads. So the bobblehead night was the Game of Thrones bobblehead night. We were all salivating at that one because bobbleheads, as far as value, if you're interested in the value of them, really depend on how many are given out. So, for example, Wrigley traditionally has 10,000 bobbleheads. The first 10,000 that arrive get a bobblehead, whereas other ballparks like Milwaukee, they give out about 35 to 40,000 bobbleheads. So there really is no value just because everybody has one. So with the Game of Thrones, that was through the Cubs special ticket link. You had to buy a special ticket, and you were guaranteed a bobblehead at a table underneath at Wrigley Field. And for Game of Thrones night, they had characters walking around, but the bobblehead was of a dragon on top of the marquee. So that, I want to say, I think there was only 1,500 of those made. So when you compare that to the 10,000, it's going to have more value.
So tell us this, Crawly. You are a season ticket holder.
I want to know about this one.
So, in order for you to get a bobblehead, you had to buy a ticket, or how'd that work?
Yeah, I sold my tickets, my seats, and I bought seats other parts of the stadium where I could do that, so I could get them. So I bought 2 tickets, and I bought someone that doesn't like Game of Thrones, so I kept both bobbleheads. So usually I'll have 2, and then I'll keep one, and then see what I can do about swapping to get a bobblehead I may not have, or one in the future.
Oh, I was gonna when you said season ticket holder, you got a really cool one I saw on Facebook as a season ticket holder not too long ago. Tell us about that one.
Yeah, when you take a look at this is the first time that the Cubs are not using paper tickets. So in the past, you would get, like, when your tickets would come in, you'd get like this big box, and it would have all sorts of stuff in there, maybe replica scorecards or other tchotchkes. But this year, the Cubs went to all digital tickets. But for the first time, they gave away a exclusive Javi Baez season ticket holder bobblehead. So that one's already nuts on the market. I've already seen that going for $200-300, and that's just the beginning. It's going to get worse.
And like, as far as season ticket holders, you said $1,500. I mean, $1,500 for the Game of Thrones bobblehead.
Right.
How many bobbleheads do you think were given out for the Javi Baez? There's probably about 15,000-20,000, but.
Yeah, that sounds about right. And just the fact that it is so unique that, some people will hoard bobbleheads. Like, I know people that went to the Game of Thrones night and got like 8 or 9 of them, where this, you can't do it. You only get one per account. So it just kind of makes them even more rare to get because you can't just, most people aren't selling them unless they were able to get 2 somehow, maybe through a friend or something. But that's what makes this one so rare is that, a lot of times there's a black market for bobbleheads. People kind of will sit there and, not everybody wants a bobblehead, but especially when the Cubs are doing as well as they have the last few years, people will sit there, they'll go into the park and they will try to buy your bobblehead off you, maybe for $20, $25, $30. I've seen them go for 40, and then they'll turn around and flip them for 80 to 90 to 100. So that's where it can kind of get a little bit crazy, especially, like I said, the last few years that the Cubs have been really doing well.
So what do you do with the bobbleheads? Do you display them, or do you keep them in the box, or what do you?
Oh, I display them. I like to look at them.
Do you keep the box? Do you keep the box just for?
I do keep the box just in case. It's funny. When there's a couple of golden eggs that, so to speak, certain bobbleheads that everybody's looking for that are hard to find.
And I do want to talk about those tonight.
Yeah, we need to know what those are.
Right. So when you talk about those bobbleheads, it's funny because I see people that are like, look, man, my kid's going to college and I have to sell all my bobbleheads. And that's when some of the big ones kind of pop out there for some big money. So, if you have the box, it just increases the value. I don't know. Like I said, I want to keep mine. But I figure when I finally keel over, my kids can maybe sell the boxes and sell them and get something if they are so inclined.
So, Crawly, you're one of the, I'd say you're one of the top Cub fans that I know. And, well, tell us about, we were asking this question from Phil from the Bobblehead Hall of Fame. Like, what is the Cubs do a lot of giveaways, obviously, throughout the year. The bobbleheads are obviously the most popular ones. Why is that, Crawly?
It's like I said, it has such a hardcore following and people just kind of love it, so they'll do a lot of things. Like I think there's a barbecue mitt this year and an umbrella hat or something, but the bobbleheads, like for a lot of us, they just kind of tell a story, you know what I mean? And so you kind of you're taking a look at the past, you're taking a look at, and sometimes depending on the design, it makes it even the better, so there's certain years that are just better than other years.
Going back to the Cubs convention, I think one of the things I think that most fans look forward to is the release of the promotional schedule. And the Cubs have been on top, as far as I'm concerned, with John McDonough back in the day. We talked about with Phil earlier with the Beanie Babies, and then a lot of different cool things they've had. But yeah, going back to what we mentioned earlier, as far as bobbleheads concerned, what are the top bobbleheads for the Cubs?
As far as the specific Cub Stadium giveaways, the big ones in 2014, same like Game of Thrones night, it was Star Wars night. And same thing, special event ticket. It was a donation for Rizzo's charity, and it was a Jedi Rizzo. So it's
Jedi Rizzo. I remember it well. What is that going for on the market right now?
I've seen it go anywhere from $200 to $350, maybe even $400 sometimes. So that's Jedi Rizzo. He's in a brown cloak and he's got this cool lightsaber. And like I said, it was weird. I couldn't make it to that game for whatever reason. My parents went and I already had bought the pre-tickets and people were trying to give them hundreds of dollars at the time. And they called me up and I said, nope, don't sell them. So I had ended up swapping out one later, but I still got my one and that one has a ton of value. When you take a look, another stadium giveaway that's a really big one. It wasn't really a stadium giveaway. I know, Stu, you have the honor of having one, but people are going nuts for the Gary Pressey bobblehead. Gary Pressey on the Lowry organ, they only made 500 of those. And of those 500, like I said, they were given away one night. Gary Pressey did some trivia questions on during a game. No, I got mine, luckily, at Cubs convention. He kind of had like a scavenger hunt, find Gary Pressey, and get a bobblehead, and people were literally stampeding down the aisles of the Sheraton. So for that Gary Pressey, that's one that people, like I said, a lot of times, depending on the market, you just don't see those pop up a lot.
Yeah, the Gary Pressey. We had Gary Pressey out here at the Rizzo event in 2016. And when he was out here, that's before me and you were really met each other, Crawly. And we had Gary come out, and he played his organ. I actually have an organ here in Club 400 that was played for like 13 years. And I tell you what, I've had a lot of players out here, had a lot of guests, but one day I went to the mailbox, and Gary Pressey just mailed me one of his bobbleheads for no reason. And I'll tell you what, he also wrote a note to me thanking me for having him out. We made a big sign for him because, as you know, Crawly, Gary Pressey has the biggest streak ever. He's never missed a Cubs game since he started. I think it's like 2,700 home games or something. It's crazy.
The Iron Man streak, and that's another thing that's really important. If you go to Cubs convention, or if you ever bump into Gary, he's not off-putting to you. He'd be happy to take a picture. He just doesn't want you to shake his hand. He's very, very cautious about that streak.
He's like the Howie Mandel of the Cubs,
like
basically.
his talent. Yeah.
Yeah, he's been healthy, but those two as far as stadium giveaways. The other one that's kind of an interesting one is the Clark the Cub one. They had a Clark the Cub one that came out roughly around, I want to say it was 2013. And Clark the Cub, they're having another one this year. And it's only for the first 5,000 kids. So not even adults. So if you and Sir William decided you wanted to go out to the game,
Gonna have to take Lauren.
You got to take Lauren, otherwise you're not getting the bobblehead. So those only are 5,000. So like I said, just depending on the numbers, that has a big effect on it. As far as I think that's 2015 was the Clark, was 2015. But yeah, that you have to have a kid. And there's another Clark one, I think this August 3rd or 4th, that they're going to be having another Clark bobblehead giveaway, only 5,000. But there's other ones too that people really kind of are looking at. Obviously the Cubs do the stadium giveaways, but there's also kind of unique bobbleheads that you had Phil on from the Bobblehead Hall of Fame. Sometimes they'll order specific ones. Forever Collectibles is a company that's really kind of the main one that chugs out the bobbleheads. And sometimes Forever Collectibles will do exclusives with either the Cubs or with the Bobblehead Hall of Fame. So the Bobblehead Hall of Fame had the Pat Hughes bobblehead. And the Pat Hughes bobblehead was a functional bobblehead where you press a button and it's Pat's final call from the World Series. So that is one. They had only a limited amount of a blue-shirted Pat. So the blue-shirted Pat Hughes is worth more than the red-shirted Pat Hughes. So, they kind of do that. Wilson Contreras on his bobblehead day had 2 home runs, a grand slam, and 7 RBIs versus the White Sox. So that one, they made a bobblehead of Wilson Contreras holding his bobblehead from that day. So it's kind of a weird bobblehead, but it's a fun one, and that sold out pretty quickly too. So, and then sometimes there's thematic ones. Right now, the big ones are the Game of Thrones bobbleheads from Forever Collectibles. And those are just different bobbleheads that are kind of, like I said, just unique on their own. And there's a series of about 6 or 7 of them, but they are really high quality. I mean, and those go for like $55 to $60 if you just want to purchase one. And there's about 6 or 7 of those, and those are really, really nice quality. Sometimes the quality plays a big part. So over the years, the Cubs, they had their first bobblehead in 2001. It was Sammy Sosa, and on the back, it was an Eckrich sausage label on the back of his helmet. So that was the first one. And then in 2002, they had 3, Sosa, Sandberg, and Kyle Farnsworth. And they had the plates. But then they stopped for a bit, and then they picked back up again, and have had them since 2007. They've kept them straight. But some years, the quality is just phenomenal, and those are the ones that people like to have too. Like 2008 was a great year for bobbleheads. They had Fukudome, Derek Lee, Alfonso Soriano, and they're just really high quality. They look really good. They're against the brick wall, and they have the autograph. They autographed not real autograph, but a replica autograph on the back. So those were really, really good quality. And some years they don't. Like 2007, they don't really look that great. 2016 looked awful, the bobbleheads. I think Chris Bryant looks like Tyler Saladino, except a little bit more pervy. I don't know. It's really not a good bobblehead, but obviously when they won the World Series, everything just got kicked up a notch. So the bobbleheads that came out in 2017, I mean, you saw lines that you never saw before.
And we will post. You sent me a video that we're going to post on the Club 400 podcast page of a bobblehead, I guess, battle, fight, whatever.
Well, it was funny because, like I said, the lines were nuts for it. And what happened is there was what's called the final out. So it was a dual bobblehead. It was Chris Bryant and Anthony Rizzo with a big giant W behind them with their arms in the air, just like you saw in that final out. And it was a game against the Brewers. It was a Sunday. The Saturday before, it rained like hell. They somehow played through the game. Sunday, it was raining in the morning. And then, they opened the gates at 11 o'clock, and you got all these people waiting for this bobblehead. They open the gates, and they say, sorry, the game's been canceled. And they close the gates and turn around. Now, just to let you know, some people literally fly into Wrigley just for the bobble games. Like they come in from out of town to get them. And so people were just livid and trying to get their hands on it. They didn't. And that was the game that all of a sudden they called it. And 2 hours later, it was bright and sunny and gorgeous. And Milwaukee was all angry about that. So when they did the bobblehead again, when that same W one, I got in line. It's crazy. It's just, if you don't like crowds and you don't like rushes and people jostling you, I wouldn't recommend some of the bobblehead days. But, I got mine, and I was walking around the stadium, and what ended up happening is that I guess there was one last box of bobbleheads, and the security guy picked it up. And I don't know if that box wasn't supposed to be out there, because sometimes, and this is really important for your audience, when you get a bobblehead, it's really important to kind of just check it to make sure that it's not damaged at all. Like there's nothing worse than coming back with a bobblehead and seeing that, maybe it's broken or something's messed up. Yeah. Exactly. So the guy picks up the box. So all the people that were right there about to get a bobblehead didn't get one. And people were surrounding the security guys, and it got pretty heated. And so I just took out my video camera and my phone and started taping it. It was pretty nuts.
Nice.
So Crawly, this year, the Cubs, obviously giving away 4 or 5 bobbleheads, but I want to, you tell me what year it was, but I'll always remember this because I thought it was different. They had Carlos Zambrano playing soccer, Ryan Theriot fishing, I think. What year was that, and how many bobbleheads were released? But it was a couple players doing their hobbies as their bobblehead, right?
Right. That was 2010. And so that was, like you said, Zambrano soccer, Theriot fishing, and it's happened a couple times. But Theriot was traded to the Dodgers before his bobblehead day. So they gave out the bobbleheads, and there was no Theriot. So similar to that, this year they're doing a similar theme where it's what players like to do, hobbies on the off season. So the first one's coming up May 10th, and that's going to be Cole Hamels Hang 10. I guess he likes surfing. But the one that people are super, super jacked about from the bobblehead collector standpoint is the Pedro Strop karaoke night.
Oh, I didn't even know they were doing that. That's awesome.
Oh, yeah, that's going to be a big one. So the Pedro Strop karaoke, that one, Pedro Strop is one of the most underrated Cubs, even, for a lot of people. And I don't know why people don't like
Nick Sheridan, you bastard. Nick Sheridan hates him. I don't know why, but.
Seriously, but look at the numbers. He is really just statistically
he's the top 3 Cub reliever of all time.
Yeah. And by the way, I'm trying to get him out here at Club 400. Just everybody knows.
But he has such a great personality. He's so fun. He kind of embodies that, and he's a really good clubhouse leader, especially for a lot of the Latino players. They have a lot of respect for him. And so it's really fun that Pedro's going to finally get his bobblehead. Because, some guys get bobbleheads and some guys don't. And for Pedro to finally get one, it's a huge honor, and everybody's really excited about that one. So that'll be fun. But Rizzo has the most out of any Cub that's existed. When Rizzo gets his this year, that'll be number 4 for him, solo bobbleheads, not including the final out one that he's with Bryant. And then Bryant will be up to number 3.
All right. I have a Cubs bobblehead trivia question for you, which before we started I thought there's no way he's going to get this, but I don't think I have a shot now.
Maybe you do. I don't know. I've had a couple beers too.
You've been to the National Bobblehead Hall of Fame in Milwaukee.
Correct.
What was the first bobblehead they ever created on their own? And
Are you talking
giveaways?
Are you talking about the Cubs giveaways?
No, I'm talking about the National Bobblehead Hall of Fame themselves. They make bobbleheads.
Correct.
They've created them. What's the first one they ever made?
That's a good question. You got me.
Ronnie Woo. That was the first bobblehead ever.
And it's still available. You can still buy it.
They actually had them on sale. I bought one when I was up there.
Yeah,
$10.
That was. But I was going to
I
ask
did not
you.
know that was the first one.
I was
That
going to
was the
ask you
first,
about
yeah.
two specific bobbleheads, because I think the Baez, the blown bubble home run, that one's got to be up in the top 10, maybe. I don't know.
Oh yeah, it's a popular one. Yet out of the lines, that was some of the most insane lines. Other than the final out, that was probably the biggest, craziest line that I ever saw was for the Baez blowing the bubble. And if you go to eBay right now, you'll see people pre-selling them, like the bobbleheads. They'll already say,
Right.
hey, if you want to do it, you can buy it now. But Baez was nuts, and that was a fun bobblehead. The last 2 years, 2017 and 2018, the bobbleheads have been really, really high quality. You got the Wilson Contreras with the Venezuelan sleeve. As you all know, Contreras coming in July, right?
Yes. Oh,
July
yes. That's public knowledge now. So
All right, good. I didn't blow it, but his bobblehead is absolutely fantastic looking. Jay has one where he's kind of jumping in there. So the quality of the ones have been really good, and the Baez blowing the bubble was just another really high quality bobblehead that the Cubs have come out with lately. So, they've been doing a good job, and I think they kind of understand the market is so much better. There's other teams like the Dodgers and the Yankees have some fantastic high quality bobbleheads, and I think the Cubs kind of were, I'd say a little bit slow to kind of catch on that people, the better quality, the more people are interested in. That's the whole point of the giveaway, is to get people to come in on a Friday in April to get to the games and buy the concessions and do that stuff. So, you invest a little bit more into the bobbleheads, more people will be into it, and it'll be more in demand.
all right, our last question for you. Let's take away the whole bobbleheads thing.
Mm-hmm.
Crawley's what is your favorite Cubs giveaway of all time? And it could be a bobblehead, but I want you to tell me, because the Cubs have had plenty of different ones. What is your favorite of all time, and what is your most prized possession as a giveaway?
That's a good question. I never even really thought about it. Obviously, the replica trophy really it meant a lot. It was, just to kind of even just have one. It's just like, wow, that's just a fantastic giveaway, just because of what it is and what it signifies of all that they give it. But there's, like I said, the bobbleheads in general. The Rizzo Jedi was just one that I never even knew at the time I was going to get as big as it would. But that one I loved getting. And then just any of the bobbleheads are fine. But stadium giveaways, I'm one of those people that literally waits to the Cubs convention to see what the promos are, and then I kind of circle the games that I want to go to. So I always like the jerseys, the replica jersey giveaways. Those are fun. But I'd say the greatest giveaway that I do have, I'm going to be honest, I didn't earn it, I bought it. But Stu, I know you have one too, is the Washburn guitar.
Yes, yeah.
And that's just a
with the 400 on there. It's 400. That's why I love it.
It has the 400. It has the Ivy. It's like, who the heck gives away stuff like that? That was just
only 100.
That one is.
I think there's 100. But there's probably more than that made, but 100 to the fans at least.
Yeah, and it's like I said, it's a Washburn guitar, so it's not like some little cheapy guitar. It's a nice acoustic guitar, and they did a fantastic job, like you said, the Ivy.
Bob Cashin has took that guitar off my wall and played it drunk many a time.
Wow.
I'm like, Bob, watch it.
That's a classic video.
I couldn't do it, man. I'd be too scared to even. I take it out every now and then, and the only song I've ever played on it is "Someday We'll Go All the Way." But other than that, nobody touches that baby.
So, Crawly, before we let you go, tell us where we could find you on Twitter, Facebook, and all that good stuff, because I know you have the Crawly's Clubhouse going. Let our listeners know where they can find you.
On Twitter, I live on Twitter. You'll find me at Crawly's Cubs. There's no E in it, CRAWLYS Cubs. On Facebook, you'll find me at Crawly's Clubhouse. Instagram, Crawly's Clubhouse. my own YouTube channel, Crawley's Clubhouse. So, you know, I always kind of like interacting with the fans, and when I'm watching a game, live tweeting just to kind of see what everybody's kind of feeling and having fun. And, you know, it's like I said, it's about the people, which is what your show is all about too. You know, it's just about the fans, the people, and interacting, and the friendships that you make along the way. You know, whether it's Danny Rocket or you guys or anything, a lot of people that I've met has been through social media. So it's a lot of fun.
Whenever we need an expert on something, Crawly is our guy.
He delivers.
He's got the best info. Like, he made my Virgin trip to the convention
a
success.
Well,
and by the way, if
3
you
hours you're there.
Yeah, and by the way, well, I maximized them though. You gotta bet. When if you haven't heard that show yet, go back in the archives and you can hear
Timeless Radio.
Yeah.
Crawly, thanks for coming on, buddy. I love you, and we'll see you soon out here at Club 400. And you're one of the best, buddy. You're one of the true Cub fans I know.
May 2nd, I'm excited to be, you know, like with, you know, that's the best thing about baseball season is getting to hang out with you guys. So I'm excited, and we'll see you for Ben Zobrist.
All right, buddy. Take care. Have a good one.
You take care. Bye-bye.
All right, Crawly, you good?
Bobblehead, 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 bobblehead.
If you wanna see heads bobble up and down,
Bobblehead, bobblehead,
the boys bobbling heads the world around.
Bobblehead, bobblehead,
Superstar athletes and VIP,
bobblehead, bobblehead,
politicians, actors, and celebrities.
bobblehead, bobblehead.
Where can you go to see them? At the National Bobblehead Hall of Fame and Museum.
Bobblehead,
The National Bobblehead Hall of Fame and Museum.
bobblehead,
Where can you go to see them? At the National Bobblehead Hall of Fame and Museum. The National Bobblehead Hall of